Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today we're going to talk about the origin and mythos of trolls. Before we get started with the video, don't forget to smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. A troll was a hideous monster who was often huge in size and possessed some form of magical ability. Trolls inhabited castles and were known to appear in the surrounding areas after dark. They were hostile to humans. They either exploded or turned to stone if they were allowed to be exposed to sunlight. In later stories, trolls are frequently depicted as beings of human stature or smaller, similar in appearance to dwarfs and elves. They inhabit mountainous regions, have the ability to shapeshift and foretell the future, and occasionally abduct human maidens. Trolls are known as trows on the Shetland and Orkney Islands, which are both Celtic regions that were formerly settled by Scandinavians. These trows are depicted as little, evil creatures that reside in mounds or near the water. Trolls are frequently depicted in the works of Henrik Ibsen, particularly in the plays Gynt and The Master Builder, where they serve as metaphors for irrational and destructive impulses. In contemporary fairy tales for children, trolls frequently make their homes under bridges, where they harass passing travelers and demand sacrifices or payments. Marchen, often referred to as marchents, are a type of folktale that is marked by aspects of magic or the supernatural, such as the endowing of a mortal character with magical skills or particular knowledge. Variations expose the hero to otherworldly entities or items. Marchens can also be pluralized to form the word marchen. Although it is sometimes translated as fairy tale, the presence of a fairy is not a necessary motif for a German story to be considered a marchen. The name Märchen is universally accepted by folklorists, and it includes not just tall stories but also amusing anecdotes. The beginning of a Märchen tale typically begins with a formula such as once upon a time, which places the story in an unspecified period of time and location. The underdog or the underdog hero overcomes incredible odds to achieve his or her goal, whether with or without the assistance of supernatural forces. The characters are exaggerated caricatures, such as ugly stepmothers, bumbling ogres, or dashing princes. The circumstances are ones with which the audience is already familiar. For example, European Märchen represent the economic and domestic arrangements of peasants and simple workmen like millers, tailors, or smiths. Those with a history dating back centuries or even millennia may have been subject to antiquated societal norms, such as matriarchy, more traditional birth and marriage practices, or older models of inheritance. The hero, regardless of how destitute or friendless they are, has easy access to the monarch. The hero also has the opportunity to win the king's daughter in marriage through luck, skill, or magical information, at which point they will immediately inherit the kingdom. In various parts of the world, you can find variations of these stories that are frequently very similar to one another. Nobody knows where they came from. They have been reworked in literary form ever since the very beginning of their history. At the beginning of the 19th century, there was a rise in people's interest in the serious study of Märchen. The collection Kinder und Hausmärchen 1812, 15, by the Brothers Grimm, most often known as Grimm's fairy tales, was the first attempt to systematically transcribe and preserve them verbatim from oral tradition. See also Fables and Legends. The term Western arts refers to the literary, performing, and visual arts that are practiced in Europe and other places that share a cultural tradition with Europe, such as the United States and Canada. Even though the countries that make up Europe are so different from one another, their aesthetic traditions have a lot in common. The artistic work of ancient Greece and Rome is generally considered to be the progenitor of most of Europe's art forms. The arrival of Christianity coincided with the establishment and propagation of these foundations across the continent. At the end of the 15th century, creative styles from Europe started to spread to the New World, which resulted in the development of traditions in the United States and Canada that were intermingled with those from Europe. However, Native American arts have maintained their own individual characteristics. For further information, see Native American arts. At the turn of the 21st century, Western cultural creation was frequently distinguished by its capacity to transcend national boundaries in both its style and its message. At the same time, though, parts of national traditions were frequently preserved. According to Lindo, the origin of the name troll is unknown. Nonetheless, he characterizes trolls in later Swedish mythology as nature beings and as all. Purpose otherworldly beings and as all. Purpose otherworldly beings, equivalent, for example, to fairies in Anglo-Celtic traditions. They appear in various migratory legends where collective nature beings are called for as a result of this fact. Lindo observes that cats and little people are sometimes substituted for trolls in the folklore record. Troll, much like thurs, is a term that is applied to Jotnar in Norse mythology and is mentioned throughout the entirety of the Old Norse corpus. Trolls are hardly ever portrayed as helpful or pleasant in Old Norse literature, despite the fact that it is believed that they reside in remote mountains, rocks, and caverns, that they sometimes live together, often as father and daughter or mother, and son pairs, and that they sometimes live together. A meeting between an unknown troll woman and the skald Bragi Boddason, who lived in the 9th century, is recounted in the book Skaldskaparmal, which is part of the Prose Edda. According to the passage, Bragi was traveling through a certain forest late in the day when he was confronted by a troll woman who demanded to know his identity and, in the course of their conversation, described herself. Before the scenario comes to a close, Bragi gives his reply, in which he discusses both himself and his capabilities as a skilled skaldid. The meanings of the Old Norse names Jotun, troll, Urs, and Risi, which are used to denote a variety of entities, are sometimes confused with one another and used interchangeably. According to the theory put forth by Latte Motes, there were initially 4 distinct kinds of beings. These included hostile monsters, mythological magicians, lords of nature, and heroic and courtly beings, with the latter category being the most recent addition. On the other hand, Herman Jacobson is skeptical of Motes' interpretation and argues that this idea is not supported by any convincing evidence. Mann notes that the phrase can be used to refer to a variety of entities, including but not limited to a Jotun or mountain dweller, a witch, a person who's extraordinarily powerful, enormous, or ugly, a ghost, a blamer, a ghost, a blamar, a heathen demi, god, a demon, a brunmagi, or a berserker. Trolls are later identified as a specific type of entity in Scandinavian folklore. There are several stories about trolls, and they are commonly depicted as being incredibly old, very strong but slow, and dim-witted as man. Aders and is turning to stone when exposed to sunlight. Trolls, on the other hand, are described as appearing much like humans with no particularly horrible aspect, but living far away from human settlement and generally having some form of social organization, unlike the Aranak, who are described as solitary beings. According to John Lindo, what distinguishes them is that they are not Christians, and those who come into contact with them are unfamiliar with them. Trolls, regardless of how well they got along with Christian culture, were ultimately harmful, and trolls have a habit of bergtagen, kidnapping, literally mountain taking, and overrunning a farm or estate. Lightning scares away trolls in Jotnar, according to Scandinavian folklore, and may be a late reflection of the god Thor's role in defeating such entity. In this regard, the absence of trolls in Jotnar in modern Scandinavia is frequently attributed to the accuracy and efficiency of lightning strikes. Furthermore, the absence of trolls in Scandinavian lands is characterized in folklore as a consequence of the constant din of the church bell. This ringing prompted the trolls to flee to other places, though not without some opposition. Various legends tell of trolls destroying under-construction churches or hurling boulders and stones at built churches. Large stones in the area are occasionally reported as the result of a troll's toss. Furthermore, until the 20th century, the origins of specific Scandinavian monuments, such as specific stones, were attributed to trolls, who may, for example, have turned to stone when exposed to sunlight. Lindo compares the trolls of Swedish folklore to Grendel, the supernatural mead hall invader in the Old English poem Beowulf, and observes that just as the poem Beowulf emphasizes not the harrying of Grendel but the cleansing of the hall of Beowulf, so the modern tales stress the moment when trolls are driven off. That's a wrap on the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, let me know by giving it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.